Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Huzzah, hooray. Another week we have made it through. Welcome to the OSR Reddit Roundup for, April 8th, which is, by my calculations, number 41. Hey, Krister, thanks for joining. I don't really have much to share as far as notes, so let's just get to it, shall we? Use up the whole hour on the important stuff. All right, here we go. I'm on the hot tab if you'd like to follow along. Hey, nothing. I'll give it a good old refresh. And let's see what we get. I guess that's it. Okay. There's a lot of these questions about what is the best formatted hex crawl. I don't know any offhand, but I'm always interested to see what the comments are. Neverland comes up a lot. I think I need to end up checking that out. What is that linking to? Oh, it's on Amazon. Let's see what someone posted an example of that spread. That might be interesting to see. Oh, that is pretty. The iron mines and rope bridges. Actually, that is very, very pretty. I don't know what the numbers mean. I guess that's just the numbers. We're at hex number. Okay, hex number 7. So you can see it there on the map. We see. So we have a visual representation of the map, or maybe a pictorial representation. Also, just with the numbers. And then we get some tables. Actually, that is quite nice. In the chat, anyone have experience with Neverland? Seems like I must have to look it up somehow. Someone's saying the only criticism they make about the layout is that Neverland is the font size is small. Null Terminus is an extremely cool book. Kolb's Oz book just hit pre-order. Oh, okay, so he's got the follow-up Oz. Hot Springs Island, I need to revisit. It's been forever since I looked at it. Yeah, I like the layout in the tower. Shadow of Tower Silver X. I don't know Dolmenwood too much. I mean, we did that one adventure, but I haven't looked at other Dolmenwood stuff. And that adventure wasn't too much of a hex crawl, so I don't think I got a good idea of what the Dolmenwood style of hex crawl presentation is. That's all good. Someone has made something called Beyond the Glittering Sands, a system-agnostic psychedelic science fantasy point crawl micro setting in the veins of Vaults of Varn, Doomlands, and the Electrum Archive. None of those do I know much about. It is on itch. Let's check it out really briefly. Does this sound interesting to anybody? Pumping this up a bit. Trying to keep in mind, I know folks had said that the size in the stream of text was kind of tiny, so I'm pumping up the text a bit. I'll post this in the chat as well. It's called Beyond the Glittering Sands. Hey, Marcelo, how are you today? Beyond the sea of glittering sands lie the Chromatic Mountains. It's no paradise, but compared to the desolate, endless seas of sand, it's a lively place where at least a semblance of civilization can be found. Beyond the Glittering Sands is an OSR/NSR point crawl micro setting placed in the mountains bordering the seemingly endless sea of glittering sands, a continent-spanning desert. It's inspired by games like Vaults of Varn, the Electrum Archive, and the micro settings of Highland Paranormal Society. Hey, Elfbait, how are you? This is a 13-page zine that contains 6 locations, 5 factions, 5 NPCs, and multiple creatures statted for Knave, easily adaptable to your system of choice, and 6 random tables to generate encounters, hooks, and assorted. Writing and layout is by Peter Eek. Sorry, Peter, for my butchery. I guess their AKA is Monster Mine. And the point crawl was made for a jam. I'm muting these coughs, so do not be alarmed if my face contorts and you don't hear any sound. The background of the map and everything else is our background for the map. Hex images, NPC art are all by Thomas Novosel. And location names are curated from the Weird Spy satellite bot. All right, so there's a lot going on there. You can get it for $2. I'm not going to claim a community copy, so I'd rather folks who could actually, if you like this and you can't spend the $2, I will leave the community copies to you. There's 70 of them, so go get you a community copy. But just to look at these is kind of just a preview. We got a kind of a map, location map. They're using hexes, but they've already said that this is going to be running more like a point crawl. Made for a jam. What is a jam in this context? Ask nothing. They have these things called game jams. I want to say these are originally for programming things, that they would be, say, over a weekend, 48 hours, sometimes longer. They would say, hey, here's something, and just kind of and create something about it. And so you would have, I first remember seeing them for video games. People taking very simple engines and creating, or not even sometimes simple, sometimes they really get into it and creating just these really cool games. Usually there's some kind of theme around the jam. It could be a theme of the content. It could be something about the methodology. It could be, hey, we're all using Python, right? Python, whatever jam. And so you would set it up. Whoever the organizers are, would basically set the terms of what the jam was. But it was basically over a certain set amount of time, you join the jam, you would take up arms to do this thing, and you would try to get it done and then share it. And then I think it kind of evolved into now it's all kinds of stuff. And you see with role-playing games, so there will be, in this case, let's say this one, what did they say? Which jam was it? Did they say for the, let's see, hold on a minute. Where did the jam stuff come from? The weird jam satellite. Just open that up. Maybe it'll give us a little bit of details. So here, this one. So the rules for this jam ran from January 27th to April 7th, so it just ended. A jam about nonsensical maps inspired by the weird spy satellite. So I don't know what the weird spy satellite, but I guess it's a bot that gives you some stuff. So the idea for this jam was to take input from that spy satellite and inspire something. And here they have the steps. And that's basically it. I actually have been meaning to do some jams, but I haven't because I'm way behind on all kinds of stuff. That is a jam. All right, so let's see. So going back to this, we've got a map with the locations, and presumably, since this was made originally for that jam, all these names, and maybe even more, I haven't used that tool. Maybe we'll go look at that tool in a minute. It was from that bot. So you get the fungus runway, the lithium cliffs, what is that, Crumbling moons? And now we have a table of 1d8 reasons to visit the Chromatic Mountains. If the player characters need a reason to visit the Chromatic Mountains, roll on this table, either once for the group or for each of the characters. Might be going on a pilgrimage to the stained glass Stardust, which is right there on the map. Try to gain access to the vast library in the Tower of Eyes in the northeast corner. Go on a safari to the breeding grounds of the blue-bellied Hargwants at Lithium Cliffs. That's in the southwest, so on and so forth. So each one of these is interesting because I think which is good is basically highlighting a different location. Except they use one twice, which is why you have 6. Or I guess they must reuse 2 of them since there are 6 locations and 8 reasons to visit the mountains. But anyway, there you have it. Let's take a look at one of these. This must be for the Crumbling Moons location. A bustling border town where the routes of the corsairs crossing the Sea of Glittering Sands meet the caravans that cross over the mountains. I think they meant built. Against the steep hills, the houses are painted in bright colors, marking their allegiance to the different merchant houses. A few large squares filled with market stalls are surrounded by a maze of winding alleys and stairs, filled with tea houses, restaurants, and taverns. The merchant houses of Crumbling Moons. We have House Beendar, House Santhru, and House Zinta. And I left my glasses in another spot. I cannot get a better look at them without me pressing forward into the screen. The de facto rulers of the town of Crumbling Moons, while the mayor is independently elected, the city council is mostly filled with representatives of the various merchant houses. The people of Crumbling Moons show their support for the houses by wearing sashes of different colors. Members of the houses are always scheming and backstabbing, but they manage to show a closed front to the outside world. Monetary growth and political power are their main goals. They don't mind dealing with most of the other factions. They see the Corsairs and Cloud Chasers as uncultured, with the Corsairs bringing in merchandise and the Cloud Chasers spending enough money in town. They are weary of the priests of the stained glass Stardust and the Scornbound, afraid they might bring conflict into town. So that was the section on the merchant houses. We've got a nice little D8 things to eat in the Crumbling Moons. Slow roasted honey grubs, sauteed gargoli mushrooms, or was that supposed to be gargoyle? I don't know. Suppose it works either way. Sand eel curry with lizard eggs, deep fried hargawant, Gil Mando's forever soup, and other yummy things. About the Corsairs, these swashbucklers of the sand seas use Crumbling Moons as one of their many gathering places. A diverse group of people, seemingly without organization or leaders, except for the captains of their sand skiffs. Happy to stop over, but if the profits get too low, they will happily move along to another town. They see the merchants of Crumbling Moons as uptight and greedy. They're on good terms with the Cloud Chasers, often participating in their races. A lot of Cloud Chasers have been known to join the Corsairs for a trip or two, usually as engineers or pilots. Relying on deep tech for their sand skiffs, they dislike the stained priests. They regard the Scornbound as dusty and dour, but welcome them aboard in exchange for their money. Hey, Brian Smith. So those are the two, or the three, actually, factions. Well, two of the three. And then we get some of the people. We get Kindred Saint-Loup, fifth child of the current heir of House Saint-Loup. Marek Sturchbacher, surveyor for House Saint-Loup. And Sarah Paverlou, bounty hunter. And you get some nice art. 2 bits. Is there more information? Okay. 2 bits on Itch. Looks pretty cool if you like that kind of thing. And who doesn't like that kind of thing? Strange locations, seas of glittering sands, and chromatic mountains. It's all there for you. Good job. And this was posted by Jimmy Shelter. To you, Jimmy Shelter, a swig of tea for the working man. It's a little bit hot still. All right. Thoughts on non-Euclidean dungeons? I have none. The oceans are endless on Meridian. Our thalassophobic eco-horror module for Mothership. Finally live on Kickstarter. Boy, that is... Should we take a look? Brian Smith, okay, has responding to Nothing, probably doing a better job explaining a jam than I did. You know, and I can hide that now. The oceans are endless on Meridian. I don't know. It's a Kickstarter if you're interested in it. Someone else released a dark supplement called Stone and Sorcery for Knave. Someone drew a map of anomalous subsurface environment level 5. There's some chatter in here. I read this I did see the other day. How big should Brandonsford be? It's kind of interesting, people trying to calculate that out. I think the question, I'm not going to go in there because I don't know what there is really to discuss about it, but it was interesting. They were trying to figure out, someone was trying to figure out basically how big the town should be, given that there are 2 competing taverns. So I guess there are calculators out there that will suggest the amount of populace you need, the population you need to support a single tavern. So doubling that for 2 taverns. And then they came up with some numbers that seemed a bit large for what Brandonford seems in the book. So they were discussing. It's kind of interesting. Hey, there's me. Interesting, but maybe not ultimately useful. This might be interesting. Oh, it's a video. Well, Edwards Books, I'll give you an upvote, though I'm not gonna turn this into a reaction video watching another video. How do you guys keep track of blogs? RSS feeds can still do things. That would be my first guess. You can see some of the stuff I already upvoted because I saw it the other day. Quick funnel, social challenges. There wasn't really much there. I saw that one. Recommendations. Boy, it seems like we're running through a lot of stuff. Here we go. Self-Morkburg. Brian Smith says, if you click your own link, reality will implode. Might be. All right. Brian Smith wants me to go back and look at the one about the quick funnel. Okay. Let's see. Where was that? All right. Here we go. So this one. All right, Brian Smith. This one is for you. This is posted by Repulsive Ad 3191. Give them an upvote. Quick funnel or introductory module? So this is one I'm not going to have a lot of recommendations for this off the bat, but hopefully we only have 3 comments, Brian Smith. So I don't know how much you're going to get out of this, but we'll see what people have to say. I'm looking for a relatively quick module to run a couple of newbies through within 2 to 3 hours. I'm going to be using BX, but the rules are no big deal since it's easy enough to convert most things to that. I originally thought DCC funnel, since in my experience it is a good quote-unquote shock to get players to realize how mortals are, but my only gripe is most DCC funnels I run usually last at least 4 to 6 hours. Tomb of the Serpent King would be perfect, but that one is pretty large. I suppose we can always just cut it short if we need to. I would say for something, Tomb of the Serpent King is really anything will work best, I think. So here's what I would say, first of all, and then we'll get into the 3 folks in here previously who maybe have posted something more meaningful. The biggest problem you have is the 2 to 3 hours. I don't know how these players are. It doesn't say, they don't say whether the players are new players or just new to OSR or wherever they are in their role-playing game journey. The big thing is how much content are you going to get through in 2 to 3 hours? Even with experienced groups, sometimes it takes a little while to get settled and you do anything. I mean, if you're literally, okay, we have 3 hours to play. We're sitting down at 8 p.m. and we got a jet at 11 p.m. on the button. By the time you get everything organized, people doing their stuff, playing, whatever, like you can see a half hour, 45 minutes is gone just there. So assuming that hopefully we're meaning that you're going to have 2 to 3 hours of just good, just game time. Even then, you're probably running up against, it's going to be tougher to get through most modules, even one-shot modules, because they're just usually designed for longer periods of time. Probably around 4 hours, I would say, because that's kind of probably a median, the median kind of amount of time you might have in a single session at a con. And also, I think what people tend to still think about in terms of a single session being about 4 hours. So you're probably going to be running an hour and a half short. So what I would look for is something that you can use that is easy to truncate. So in something like, say, Tomb of the Serpent King, whatever it is their goal is in that, if it's not just go in there and mess around in the dungeon, they have multiple levels. So after the second level, and so I forget exactly how many levels they have in it, but at some point you're going down levels, just those stairs don't exist in your version. And whatever thing that they would have gotten or tried to get or needed to see on level 4, that ends up being like at the end of the hallway. Instead of it being stairs, now it's a short hallway that leads to that room where the thing is, or whatever it is. If they're going down to defeat the ogre that's at the bottom of the thing, move that bottom up and just stick the ogre where it needs to be. I would rather that than try to rush them through the individual levels, because you want them to get the feel for it. You just need to cut it. You need to cut it down. That would be, I don't have a particular module, but I would say anything you pick is probably going to be, unless it specifically says for a short one shot, it's probably going to have to look at how to truncate them. If they're using dungeon levels, then just cut off the last level or last 2 levels, cut it in half, and put your finish there so that it'll be more likely to get into your time frame. Let's see. Nothing says how 2 to 3 hours is so short. You're going to have to make it yourself and have a very tight story. Yep, I agree. Brian Smith says Sailors on the Starless Sea for DCC can run long. It's the best one. Oh, these are the funnels. There's a 5e funnel in, let's see, Matt Colville's Arcadia. It looks like a fun blend. Brian Smith also says that they run Sailors on the Starless Sea with a set-piece intro. The mob gets the keep. They explore the first level, fight the second, and all ends with the Chaos Lord. Yeah, I think what you're going to have to do, I think everyone's saying that correctly. I don't know that you have to necessarily make your own from scratch if you just can't. Though I mean, that's probably the best way because you can absolutely tailor it. But yeah, you're going to need to look at the module and then figure out, okay, I'm not going to get all the way in here, so let's cut it, whatever that is. In the case of some of these location-based adventures where you're exploring a keep or a ruin or something like that, or a dungeon, yeah, if it's looking at and saying, okay, in this one-shot dungeon is 4 levels, and you're looking but you're only going to have maybe half the time that they're thinking you're going to have, then cut that dungeon in half, call it a night, change up the goals or whatever you need to for it to make sense. Skull Fungus in the Reddit says, how about Goblin Gully? It's short, a little scary, and free. Well, look at that. Someone might have had the answer all along. Cherokee A4 agrees that Goblin Gully is rather good, and there's also a variant that amps up the whimsical and fey themes. let's take a look at Goblin Gully because it is free. Oh, it's old. Let's see. So this is an old from 2009 Friday freebie. Goblin Gully Deadly one-page dungeon. Just because it is in a level 1 module doesn't mean you can deal with it. That is the theme of Goblin Gully. This level 1 quick dungeon crawl should either lead the player characters running scared, dead, or cleverly locking the door behind them and trying to figure out how to make sure no one else opens the door once they've left. This is the first time I've done a full dungeon using only a side view map. I love side view maps partially because they remind me of the old days of D&D, and you don't see a lot of these maps in modern modules. However, normally you take the side view map and use it to illustrate how the top view maps link together. In this case, I didn't even bother with a standard top view at all. Everything you need is nicely shown on the side view. One-page dungeon PDF can be downloaded here. It was written for a level 1 to 2 BX or Labyrinth Lord party. And there's kind of the map. But let's see the PDF. All right, let's take a look at this. We're here. Zoom in. All right, Goblin Gully. Side view, which does give us everything we need. So we start off presumably on the tree side of the gully. Come in, go down, there's a couple rooms, and you got to cross a drawbridge over a nasty deep pit. And then you get to some other rooms. Notice a few things that if it was a more full-featured dungeon, I might say, you know what, this could use a little bit more of this, which I'm going to say in a second, but for the case of a one-shot, it's good they don't. And that's sort of multiple paths things, because in a dungeon that you may be using at least a whole couple of sessions on potentially, or certainly if it's something you want people to go back to and really explore, that kind of, what does the Alexandrian call it? The decaying of the dungeon, having different entries and having different ways things link together. All that stuff really makes for fantastic dungeons, but it also means that your party can kind of wander around and be a little bit aimless. And then a one shot, especially like that poster was talking about in Reddit, a short one shot, that can really be counterproductive. Obviously, you don't want them to feel that there's no choices and things, but opening up and having too much, they just might spend a lot of time milling around and not getting to the stuff that you want them to get to. Let's see, in the chat, Brian Smith says in the that Matt Colville one shot, working through a control cave seems like you can really feature one creature effectively in a one-shot funnel. Taking the creature makes sense for a 0-level mob too. Yep. So let's see what we have in Goblin Gully. Presumably, the enemies in this one is one or more goblins. Everyone in the area knows of the old Kale slave pit in the ravine outside of town. It fell into disuse with the collapse of the Kale Empire, and only the occasional group of adolescent would-be adventurers ever goes down there anymore. But then the Her farm was found ransacked, the family missing. And now someone has rebuilt the bridge between the two sides of the old slave pit. All right, so there's the background. Now we get some rumors. Roll D12, and he's commented whether they're true or false. True, the pits have been taken over by goblin raiders. Also true, there are secret areas in the old slave pits that have never been explored since they were abandoned. False, the Her family had a magic axe among their stolen possessions. Also false, the slave pits are run by abandoned mutant slaves. Also false, there is a secret entrance into pits at the bottom of the ravine. True, there are creepy leftovers of ancient Kale experiments still lurking in the depths of the slave pit. Also true, the main entrance to the pit is a cave now overgrown by a huge tree. And then finally false, it's not goblins or mutants in the pits, but one of the boys in town who was abandoned there and has gone feral. All right, so I'm going to just kind of breeze through this, but we get the idea. Nice little background. Got some nice rumors. So we've got goblins in the entrance. We have the antechamber. A grand hall. 4 goblins. On the west side of the bridge, there's 2 more goblins. We have the bridge. We have the gully floor. Ooh, that's kind of creepy. Just in a sad way. Looking through the reeds along the stream at the base of the gully will reveal the long decomposed body of an adolescent male missing from town for 2 years after being pushed out of area 4 So they'd come over to the side of the bridge, and he was pushed out by his friends long before the goblins rebuilt the bridge. That's pretty sad. And you could definitely, if you were going to work this into something else, you could really play up like a whole subplot there with the town and that those kids and whose families those kids belong to and what was going on there. Empty chamber, the boss's chamber, more goblins. Those two elven skeleton guards that will fight on a living statue, some more goblins. And then there's a black pudding in the pit. Hey, my squeezing arm. Hardly ever catch me live, but I'm happy to be here. Hey, well, I'm happy to have you here. All right. So, yeah, so there's a sad thing about the gully floor. There's a black pudding in the pit, but notice, yes, a few twists and turns, but it's mostly goblins in a very nice, flavorful location. And you can get the goblins pit. I will, or sorry, what is it called? The Goblin Gully. I will post this in the chat so you can grab this. It is oldie but goodie, free 12, 13 years going, something like that. When was this? August 2009. So I'll just pop that on the screen really quick. That was Goblin Gully. Cool. So actually, Brian Smith, I would say that was worth exploring just to get to the Goblin Gully. Cool. That's a good one to put on my list. Let's see. Now, nothing says, I think this is the best one-page dungeon I've seen. You could add it to any campaign by just adding a few tie-ins. Yep, you could. And then Brian Smith says, that single page seems like really about as much as you would need to run something, spruce it up however you like. Yep, and whether it was just flavor or whatnot, that little bit about the decomposing body of the boy that's been missing from the village really gives you some more. I almost wish the only thing is like just if he just bolded that, some of those elements of that, because I really think those are things that you could play up. I'd want to make sure. I mean, of course, I just saw it, so it spoke to me. But if that would hit me right in me, I want to highlight to GMs like, hey, use this. If you mean to work this into an existing place, use this kind of stuff because it's almost a secondary goal. Could even be another plot hook. Why are they there? The heir her family was missing. Somebody else was missing from 2 years before. That is even, instead, worse because there's a pattern happening that you can pick up on. Okay, back to our scrolling down through the list. Thanks, Brian Smith, for picking that topic. Other folks here in the chat, feel free to suggest a topic if you see one. How do you define OSR? What does this include? Not going to be able to do it. I'm not touching that one. I've done a video on that. You can look it up if you're interested. In fact, I got a comment on that video, which I think it was a year old, but hey, people find stuff. People find stuff way older than I commented, and someone said, hey, I disagree with you, but I like the video. And I was like, hey, great. I do not require agreement. Glad they enjoyed it. But yeah, it's such a tough question to ask, and it's only getting harder. This one might be interesting. Generating random encounters using AI. I mean, this is the first step to Terminator. I guess I don't need to open a new tab. Terminator and the Matrix. This was posted by Peakril Press. I trained an AI to generate random encounters / prompts and also produce ridiculous deities and was pretty blown away by the results. So we've got a couple of links here. Let me thumb this up. First, let's go to his blog. Okay, I will post this. Folks, if you want to check it out at home or just grab this later. This is generating random content with AI. I will highlight it as soon as it pops up in the chat. There we go. Okay, this is posted on Peakril Press from Monday, April 4th. Generating random content for RPGs using artificial intelligence. The topic of artificial intelligence in tabletop RPGs actually machine learning, but I'll call it AI for simplicity's sake, is something I've discussed a lot recently. Noisms asked on his blog whether AI would change the hobby. On the NSR Discord server, we had AI-generated failed careers for Electric Bastion Land posted by Chris McDowell and some Karen Sparks from Yochai Gal, plus an ongoing discussion of how AI can be used in RPGs. Machine learning is something I've wanted to tinker with for a while now. I've been put off by lack of a powerful enough PC, a loathing of the Python programming language, and general laziness. Meanwhile, I've poured hundreds of hours hacking into my Deity Galaxy Twitter bot using tracery and nested lists, a little like Perchance, to generate text which is rarely satisfactory. I plan to publish a book of nano-deities based on curated output from Deity Galaxy, and they wrote about that a while ago. But before doing so, I will have to spend a lot of time sharpening up the bot's output. A couple of weeks ago, my friend, the horror writer James Burt, came to visit. We had a wonderful walk around the hills about Allen Heads, where, among many other things, we talked about my nano-deities plans. James has written previously about using AI as a writing partner, and our shared acquaintance, Shardcore, published what may be the world's first AI-written book, The Future is Already Here, by Algo Higgs, a computerized riff on the book The Future Starts Here by John Higgs, which, by the way, is a fabulous book. If everyone read it, then the world would be a better place. James suggested that I try generating deities using AI and the GPT engines. So that's what I've done. I've used the OpenAI playground to paste in some prompt text, which you'll find at the end of the post, and was blown away with the results. Malus, deity of the abandoned sock, is a small, slightly furry creature not dissimilar to a ferret that can be found in the laundry basket of most homes. Malus is a mischievous god and often delights in hiding one sock of a pair or tangling up clothes that have just been ironed. To please Malus, leave a sock out on the floor for him to play with. Kerfuffle, goddess of tangled wires, is best worshipped by knotting together at least 7 different electrical cables and then throwing them into a puddle. The resulting sparks will be a sign of Kerfuffle's favor. Kerfuffle herself is a small, spiky sphere, not unlike a hedgehog made of barbed wire. Snorfle is the god of hiccups. Snorfle is an amorphous blob of green slime with a single eye in the center. To worship Snorfle, drink a pint of milk and then try to hiccup. If you are successful, Snorfle will grant you a wish, provided that wish is related to hiccups. Finally, Schnarf is the god of electronic bleeps and bloops. It can be found in most electronic devices, especially those with a lot of buttons. Schnarf is especially fond of mobile phones and can often be found lurking in the background when someone is taking a selfie. To worship Schnarf, simply take a selfie with a mobile phone and then offer it up to the god. Those were all written by a computer. Wow, okay, that got my attention. Suddenly I'm thinking of all sorts of use for GPT-3 powered text generation. Tables of random content are a big deal in TTRPG land. People can't seem to get enough of them. Witness the wonderful D4 caltrops. Right out of the box, GPT-3 understands these tables. When I asked it to write a table of random encounters for fantasy TTRPG, here's what it came up with. And we'll just blow this up so we can see it. 2d6 goblins, a dragon, a group of bandits, a wandering minstrel, a friendly NPC who offers help to the party, a hostile NPC who demands money or else they'll attack, an animal that is either friendly or hostile, a group of mercenaries who are looking for a fight, a group of cultists who are worshipping an evil deity, or a magic creature that is either helpful or harmful. 10 believable Rally Vanilla possible random encounters. As an aside, something which initially appears surprising is that this output includes the gaming-specific term 2d6. One of the great things about GPT-3, in comparison with its more readily available predecessor, GPT-2, is that it was trained on a mind-boggling number of web pages, undoubtedly including many gaming blogs, and probably a sizable number of random encounter tables. It is really great at understanding context and using the relevant domain-specific language in its output. It can even write computer code given just a very simple prompt. And then there's a tweet, which I won't read. To get improved random encounters, I started crafting prompts to seed the AI-generated list, i.e. I started to write the sort of encounters that I would like to read. This took many iterations, and as you'll see from the prompts at the end of this post, required adding a huge amount of spice to the seed text in order to get encounters that didn't sound too generic. Here's what the AI came up with when I tasked it with creating some random wilderness encounters. I had hit submit several times to collect all of these examples. A small village of mud huts is in the process of being slowly buried by an encroaching sand dune. The villagers are in a state of panic. A quick check will reveal that the sand is being controlled by an evil sorcerer who lives in a crumbling manor house in the center of the village, surrounded by a low moat. The sorcerer's name is Hamza Omri, and he is a wicked man. In his basement, he possesses D6 bottles of a potion which, when drunk, will transform the drinker into a sand dune. These potions are worth 100 gold pieces each, and Omri is willing to sell them. The sorcerer also possesses a magical amulet, which will allow the wearer to control any sand dune within 100 miles. Omri is very reluctant to sell this, but will do so if offered some D1000 gold pieces. That's interesting. I would just maybe said 1,000. Brian Smith says, this is interesting, but it feels like the uncanny valley of RPG writing. It probably is. And I actually have been looking at this, and I literally bought literally a license or access to a tool for checking out a lot of this AI stuff for these kind of purposes. So it's interesting that someone's, in a sense, gotten there before me, but I've been totally looking at this sort of thing. I think as always, it's, you're going to want some of that crafting, but it's not dissimilar from having a bunch of random tables that you then take and put together and then finally use the GM come through and humanize and fix. Because, just in this example, right? So we looked at this example of the small village. It's really kind of cool, but there's something that just contextually just doesn't make sense. It's a village of mud huts being buried by sand dunes. Like usually in areas where you have mud huts, you're not right next to sand dunes. Just me thinking like, well, you have enough water and earth to make mud to make your huts out of. Like, where's the sand dunes coming from? So, that's just a little weird thing that I would probably fix and say, well, maybe it's mudslides or something. Okay, well, maybe that, is a little bit weird. Whoops. Obviously, they talk about his basement, which is kind of funny, but I don't know that I would call someone's manor house the basement, but, that's just not as far as fancy terms, it's probably a little bit too modern for me and things like that. And obviously tweaking the prices and things. But yeah, it gives you this great seed idea, which is a lot further along than you'd get from most tables. And then you could still tweak it. I think the uncanny valley thing, right, is an interesting comparison because when you think of that in terms of visuals, it's because there's this weird disconnect when you get something so close. I would put it to you that you could probably throw these out on Reddit or something, and people would not get that disconnect because unless you told them it was AI generated, they might think that someone just went through, maybe used tables or something else, and then came up with those themselves, and just whatever quirks that we read in here because we know it's AI. They're like, oh, this is probably an AI quirk. People would just put down to personal quirks, maybe even, oh, this person's not a native English speaker or whatever we would do. But you probably actually wouldn't get the uncanny valley effect if you didn't already know it was AI, and that's probably the scary part. It's almost more like a deep fake. A group of D6 pixies flutter down from the trees, laughing and playing. They carry with them a large number of brightly colored flowers, which they offer to the PCs. If the PCs accept the flowers, they will find that they are unable to move from the spot. The pixies will then proceed to strip the PCs of their clothes and possessions and will fly away, laughing. The flowers are actually poisonous and will cause the PCs to become paralyzed for D6 hours. Oh, that's a nasty one. Ooh, evil AI. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these, but we get the gist, and these are really good. I'm going to have to play around with these prompts in my AI, in my machine learning playground this afternoon or this weekend sometime. Well, that's rather interesting. There's still a clear tendency for these encounters to revert to something rather more generic than the examples I fed them, and there are inconsistencies which need tidying up and details which need filling in. But I'd say that these encounters are at least as creative as 75% of the equivalent human-written content out there. I'm really tempted to keep fiddling with this and creating more encounters, but OpenAI Playground costs money. I'm still well within my $18 initial fee credit, but I have a lot of uses I want to put that remaining credit towards. Yeah, see, this is one of the things. When I signed up, I got in on one of these lifetime deals, so I paid more up front, but I don't have those kinds of limits. So I can mess around with this a lot if I see fit, and I shall. Krister says, interested to hear you're working with a machine learning tool. I used to be a team lead for an ML team. Cool. Krister, you are way ahead of me. These tools are really interesting, the kind of playgrounds that I got access to, because they allow you to do a lot. You don't have to do a lot of programming. It will sort of let you just put in just basically the same thing to which Peakril here, I don't know their name other than Peakril Press, is talking about here, is being able to put in prompts and stuff. I might have to get into more programming. I do have some programming background. For a long time I did front-end programming, so my JavaScript is at a pretty high level. I haven't tried Python. Hopefully some of that knowledge will convert over in a way if I need to get into it, because I think Python's kind of the language that everyone's using for this stuff. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. In the future, I'm sure we'll see more and more AI replacing, or at least providing an increasingly used alternative to, old school tables. The key, as ever, is the seed text. So there will still be a need for humans to craft text which lead to interesting results from the AI. Unlike with tables, though, a single set of well-written prompts can generate pretty much unlimited outputs forevermore. So it may not be true to say that we will need good writers as much as ever. We may only ever need them once. The other thing is this type of AI is great for, and which I intend to explore a lot more over the coming months, is providing inspiration and feedback for human written text. This might operate in a similar way to existing writing partnerships, allowing ideas to be bounced back and forth and refined before the human partner settles on a final revision. Also a great way for breaking out of writer's block. Brian Smith says, I have the creeps about writing to feed the AI. Yes, feed the AI. Yeah, feed me, Seymour. Yep, pretty much. Brian Smith says, once this is cracked, no more need for humans in the hobby. Well, we still want people to play and run stuff, hopefully. If it ever gets to you just log on to Roll20 and the computer does it for you, that would be kind of scary. And Krister confirms that Python is the language these days. That's what I thought. That's what I'd heard. So, Krister, good that you're Cockatoo's Nuggets asking what AI I use. I signed up for a thing that has like a multiple AIs in it. Well, let me see. Hold on a minute. Let me get it up here. Do I have it somewhere? Where did I stick it? Hold on a minute. We're going off at a whole. What did I think I saved it somewhere. You know, Nightbot's been awfully quiet lately. Here we go. So, okay. So the one I signed up for, Riku AI. Did I not sign in with that one? Or oh, maybe did I sign in with? Hold on a minute. What did I do? I don't remember. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, maybe that's it. This is one of those things where the form picked up the wrong thing. Hold on a minute. No, it's not that one. I think it's my Express email. I think. Is it going to let me in? Okay. So here we go. I have access to OpenAI, Cohere, AI21, or A was that 80, AI21, and JPTJ. So I can go in here and go into the playgrounds, and I actually found one that I was messing around with, which was creating Cthulhuoid deities. I go ahead and say that. So let's see. Hold on. How did I? Okay, no, that's it. So you'll just go through and I'll create all these, and it kind of seeded these, and then I can go in and do more of these. Did it generate some more? So there it came up with Agaitul and Sphiztiz. So you can do all that stuff, and then you can export this code. And one thing I was thinking I was being able to see, here's the Python code, or sorry, there's the Python code. You could throw in there and then do whatever. So, I was thinking different ways to surface this. I don't know, or I'd have to look up if there are limits on, you know, how many, if I was going to have this and triggered via API, like from let's say a website, like, you know, if I have limits to the amount I assume there's some kind of limit of calls, whatnot, but Brian Smith says, Nightbot's here, watching, listening, probably working on the AI version of Chris Perkins. Perhaps. Bob Mossel says, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid you'll have to roll initiative. And I think that was a pretty good Hal voice, if I do say so myself. So I got that. And I will be doing more fooling around with that stuff. Let's see. So here he's got the prompts. I'm not going to read these. I feel like I've read enough of these, but you can see a whole bunch of prompts they put in. And then here are the prompts for the random encounters. I'll probably, you know, maybe I'll do that. I'll write up some. One of the things I was thinking about is, could I write a bunch of these prompts, put them in, and then have a site where you could go and randomly generate it. I have my hireling generator that I want to at some point revisit, and something like this where I could throw in a bunch of those hireling generators, and then hirelings that are generated that I generated kind of the old-fashioned way, and then see how AI generates stuff. Might be super interesting. Cockatoo's Nuggets confirms that it was a good Hal impersonation. The Todd 5000. Yep, that'll you'll log into here one time and it'll just be kind of a slightly pixelated version of myself giving an AI generated performance. Very cool stuff. I will have to revisit it. I don't know how to get folks, if folks who want to play around with this. I know you could sign up. So when I got onto this Riku, the first thing I had to do after I got onto it is kind of go in and get keys and everything from here. So you can get keys for these, and then you can mess around. This is just kind of a good way to just keep everything in one place. It does have a community showcase that you can search. And you can see here, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. I haven't gone and searched here. Let's just, well, you could do a search. I don't know. Let's see if there's, if I put RPG, what do we get? Do we get anything? We might get nothing. Is this nothing or is this something? It might be nothing. All right. Should we put encounter? Has anyone, maybe I'm trying to be too, okay. Nothing in here, but lots of different things. This is the one that so I didn't even make that one up myself. I just grabbed that and copied it so I could check it out. New Lovecraft God, a fictional story generator. And then you can just hit something and we're going to get something in a minute. That's right. When you use all caps, it will be, I'll be locked, Brian Smith, I will be locked up into the end. Okay, well, I don't know what that one did. Anyhow, a lot of fun to be had here. It's kind of, I mean, yeah, I guess you could look at it. I think on the one hand, you think, well, this is kind of scary. On the other hand, it's really interesting and fascinating. And I feel like I don't think we're at the time yet where it's going to totally be replacing people, but it may allow people to do really interesting things and maybe work faster because you can throw in all your kind of raw materials, let the AI almost do like editorial kind of passes on it, and then come back to it and then refine it finally. Bob Muzzle says, a very short story. It was indeed. Probably a TPK. Yep, probably. Probably. All right, so that was Peak Grill Press. Let's go. Any comments? Samurai Dean Beandog says you can train AI on once you have enough good seed and cut out the human element completely. I probably would never want to do that because I want stuff to be me, you know. So if I ever used a tool like this to generate a bunch of content, I would absolutely take another swing through it to make it mine and make sure it's staying on point within keeping the kind of context that really, as the author, only you have in your brain. The AI is not going to be able to know everything, tonally and everything else. It's going to end up, you know, it's like, I feel like it's like a Hoover vacuum. And yeah, sure, the better your prompts are, the more it can sort of hone in. But still, it's going to be picking up stuff that you're going to need to sift through by hand. All right, so we're about at the 50-minute mark. So one more thing. Should we look at this one? Someone made a fun little oracle. Why not? Posted by Master Pung Pao. They made a fun little oracle, Dungeon Master, Geek Edition. I don't know what that means. There's an ODT file. What is ODT for? What is ODT? Open document? Is that one of those? Let's just look at the image. What is this? I don't know. This oracle. So is this supposed to be just be answering a question? Oh, I think it's more humorous. As in, I don't know. I forgot my Dungeon Master's guidebook. Oh, I don't know. Could you rephrase the question? Okay, it's not as interesting as I thought. It's humor. I get it. But I need something better. Open document. Okay. Yeah, I don't have Open Office on here right now. Money system, break the game. 7 best adventure modules from Footprints. Just roll a d20. Questions about Gamma World. It says, folks, if you got something for me, you see interesting, now's the time. How to implement player maps. I'm not sure what that means. How to implement them. Just hand them out. One shots, a practical primer for GMs. I mean, is this a question or something they're giving us? All right. Let's take a look. So this is on Itch. Let's go to there from Artikid. Oh, there's no. This little PDF is here to help you come up with ideas and manage the game. 3 pages. You'll find 4 ways to come up with adventure ideas, 13 suggestions on how to handle the game and make the best out of a 3-hour session. Is there a way I could do this? All right. Sorry. I didn't really want to do that, but I want to look at it. You didn't give me any pictures, and hopefully the payoff will be that I didn't pay, and somebody here will if they find it. So let me link to it first. This is from One Shot. I'm just going to call it One Shot's Primer. So if we check this out quickly and folks find it valuable, please go and reward the author by purchasing it. If you think it's, whoops, I did that again. All right, zoomed in the wrong tab. Okay. One Shot's a Guide by Luigi Castellani. Having a hard time coming up with and game mastering one-shots? I do have some general advice. Nothing groundbreaking, mind you, but it might spark something. Obviously, some types of RPGs may benefit less from these suggestions. I already have adopted them in the mechanics. Design. Okay, let's start with a few ways to get inspiration and come up with ideas. 1. Steal shamelessly. Did you ever see some crazy news on the TV? There's a novel you like? Run it for your players. Let's say you like the scene in Weathertop and Lord of the Rings. Here's your adventure seed. Example, the characters are messengers. They have to deliver a letter and have 3 days of travel ahead of them. On the second night, they take shelter among some ruins. Little problem, the remains are haunted. The PCs have to survive the night, repelling the specters. So that's 1 for ways to get inspiration. Use sources you know and adapt them. 2, selection of main elements and themes. Choose a place, choose an action, choose a twist, choose an adversary, choose an item, choose a time frame. Example, place, temple, action, escort, twist, double, adversary, gargoyles, item, a cup, and a time frame is a full moon. And this translates to the PCs must escort the priests going to reconsecrate the lost temple of Salber with the cup of eternally flowing waters. The ritual must happen the night of the full moon. However, the temple is currently the den of a flock of gargoyles, and unknown to the PCs, a spy sent by an enemy cult has infiltrated the mission to replace the cup with a fake. With a fake, not a flake. So there you go. So you can kind of fill in the blanks, almost Mad Lib style, and then tease out an adventure hook from there, or an adventure summary. 3, no nuance. Choose a theme and develop it to the extreme. Example, jam/jelly. The alchemist has vanished. No one knows where to find her. A rich merchant hires the PCs to recover a perfume he bought from the alchemist. Due to an accident, the alchemist's tower has been overrun with animated and almost intelligent oozes, jellies, and mutant giant insects. Interesting there. The mutant giant insects don't seem to match up with the jellies, and jams, but that works. 4, divination. Italo Calvino notoriously wrote a book using tarot to drive the fiction. You can do the same using whatever method you prefer, be it tarot, runes, or the I Ching. Oh, but there's no example for this one. Boo, you put an example in there. Methodology. A few good practices on handling things once the game starts. 0, characters and props. Try to have the characters and all props ready before the session starts. Using pre-gens can cut down prep time significantly. It would be best if you also managed to explain the basic rules beforehand. Optionally, explain rules as you go, avoiding big info dumps, which may prove unnecessary. This is good advice. And hey, by the way, we're in the internet age. Use email, use Discord, send folks videos. I don't even mean like send them my video, but if you're going to be playing Knave and someone's got an excellent video on breaking down Knave for beginners or kind of getting ready, send it to your players a week early or a few days early and see if they watch that to learn. Send them the pre-gens out a couple of days beforehand so they have a chance to look them over. Or if you're going to have them choose, don't wait till they get to the table to choose. Send out some documents or share them on Discord or wherever, Roll20, wherever you are, so that they can use the downtime before you get to the game to do that prep work. So when it comes down to game time, hopefully, it probably won't work for everybody, but maybe more people than not are kind of ready to play as opposed to ready to get ready to play. Okay, so that's 0. 1, take notes. Do not write a screenplay. Do not write a plot. You need places, characters, and events that the characters can interact with. Also, you do not need to write down complete stats for all NPCs. Also good advice. Recycle. Try to use ready-made stuff. Those NPCs you designed for that other game. Pick a couple of random tables to liven things up. Also good advice. Cut down the crap. Avoid long exposition. The PCs and their actions must be front and center. Cut any unnecessary dice roll. If you can foresee nothing interesting coming from a dice roll, either way, you do not need that dice roll. Also good advice. Wherever you go, there you are. No traveling or instantaneous traveling unless the trip in itself is the location. Also probably good advice for one shot. one thing at a time. In a one shot, you can quote unquote do one thing. 2, if you are lucky and have the time, do not waste time. Give players a clear goal/hook, but be ready to change it. Also good advice. 6, everything has a beginning, middle point, and ending. What about circles? You have 3 scenes or locations or events to make it work. Add 2 side scenes for a little variety. So you can call them scenes, locations, whatever you want. But essentially, you have a very finite amount of, kind of the idea of these last couple of pieces of advice. Everything's finite in the one shot. So keep it on point. Keep it to a limited amount, because otherwise you're just gonna get lost. Let's see. I might have there's things in the chat going on that I missed. Now, nothing says this isn't bad advice, but none of it is specifically helpful for one shots. I think some of this is specifically helpful for one shots. Nothing. I think, in a sense, a one shot. I think for most things or a lot of things, whatever advice you give for one shots is good advice for your regular sessions. But in one shots, you kind of have to be extreme, or even you have to be really mercenary with how you cut you cut content and factor things in, because you don't have the time for frippery. But I would say that while, and I think these last few are really aimed at one shots, but I think good advice is good advice. And then nothing says, okay, it did eventually get to some one shot advice. Yes, it did. All right, so we did, let's see, that was number 6. Number 7, any direction is the right way. The game is where the PCs go, not what you wrote down. Follow their actions, no railroading. Though I would say in a one-shot, a little editorial advice, you feel free to railroad a bit. It shouldn't be egregious, and you shouldn't be going against what the PCs want to do. They shouldn't be wanting to go one direction, and they're on a conveyor belt sweeping them in the other direction. At the same time, I think it's understood with a one-shot kind of situation that you're not opening up an entire 360-degree range of motion or action, because you'll just never get through everything. You just don't have time for it. Number 8, no more than 2 sentences to describe anything. Let details of stuff emerge in play through the actions and questions of your players. Number 9, focus on no more than 2 items per scene. 1 is better. A statue or some books. No more than the books and the statue. The magic pew or the stable boy. I don't know what the magic pew is, but I would like to know. 10, be dramatic in your description. Telegraph information. There is not just a simple fork in the road. You feel a cold wind coming from the path on the left. The hand side path is covered with copious bloodstains. There isn't just a farmer. There's a hungry farmer, an angry farmer, a greedy farmer. 11, everything has at least 2 faces. Things and persons are slightly more complicated than they appear to be. People often have contrasting motivations, so every problem has 2 possible solutions. Finally, 12, draw a line between what's on the stage and what is behind the scenes. You'll find it useful to have a place that is not on the stage, a base, a castle, or den. This is the place where the adventurers start from and return to once the session ends, but is not involved in the action. This will help you give the game a sense of closure, whatever happens in the game. And then that's it. We are done. I hope you find this advice helpful. Happy gaming. All right. So I think this is a really good. So I guess I got two vectors here. One, in terms of the content, I actually think it's really good, and I think it's got a lot of good content. Nothing questioned what percentage or how much of it is actually geared towards one shots as opposed to generally. But either way, I think it's good, and I think with one shots, you really, like I said before, you kind of really got to drill into it, because you're on such a fixed. Everything is so fixed in a one shot. You really have to be tough on yourself as a GM when you're doing things. But the second vector is on a pay for document. I kind of feel like Luigi, even in terms of just in Word, you could maybe jazz this up a little bit. People paying a couple of bucks, I feel like throw some layout on there. I don't even care about images so much, but you could probably make it worth. I just kind of think, like, just as a thing, if you're going to have someone pay for this, because this is the kind of content that is easily just a blog post. I have no problem with somebody saying, hey, I wrote this, I think it's useful. And like the Joker said, my father told me, if you're good at something, don't never do it for free. Fine, granted. But then if I had paid for this in its current state, just in terms of the layout, I might think like, well, can we do a little bit more than this? Show putting a little bit of effort in there. But content wise, I thought that was excellent. Elfbase says limit options. Yeah, limit options is good. This would be a good document. maybe there'll be a version 2 where they'll kind of beef it up a little bit with some more examples and things, and then just lay it out a bit more. But Luigi Castellani, that was good, and thank you for sharing that. What was that? I'm back here. I believe we are it. We are at the bottom of the hour. Thanks so much to everyone who joined in. If you give a thumbs up on your way, that would be awesome. If you're not subscribed and you're in here, this is kind of what I do. Hopefully you like it. I got tons of other videos about tons of other topics out there. So if you subscribe, just be notified when I post new stuff. These usually drop. I do these every Friday, pretty much. I might have some exceptions this month. We'll see. But so far, so good. This was number 41, which is crazy. I've done 41 of these, so I'm getting close. I'm slowly getting close to having done these for a full year's worth of weeks, which to me feels kind of crazy. But there we are. Otherwise, everybody have a great rest of your day, night, weekend, weekday, weeknight, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Happy Friday, everybody. Game on. Talk to you later.